everyone. I got an email from one of the members, Ariel, of the group here in Quit Your Job, and he wanted me to just go over his portfolio here, so we can do that. And unfortunately, I guess that's as big as we're gonna get it. We'll go through here, and from what I could tell, now even over here, let's see if I click that. It's saying architecture. Just looking at the overall set, I would say, in terms of an architectural point of view, I would say that I'd want to see more one-point perspectives in this setup here. Especially, I'm just sort of thinking about these few photos right now, these few in this room right here. So yeah, and I feel like a little tighter too. And this is, I know we want to, well, let's go one by one. I'm sort of jumping ahead here. So let's focus in. And it's not that I don't like this composition, but I just feel like, especially from an architectural standpoint, you'd want to be something pointing straight at this wall over here to show this area. Something. Maybe you want to make this TV the center of attention, and you might have to move this couch or something, or, you know, maybe the camera was right here, but I just think the best way to put this is be more based in thinking of one-point perspective. It's going to make things, a lot of people don't realize, because it doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't get brought up too much, but when we sort of get tighter, lines tend to straighten out. That's for sure. Then shooting really wide, right? And then also when we shoot one-point perspectives, this is the other way we can really straighten out lines and make things feel like they're not pouring off the bottom here with wide-angle lenses. You guys ever get that feeling? Or even if you straightened everything, it doesn't matter. It feels like water would pour off like a waterfall over here. I'm not so much picking on that in this photo, but I think you guys know what I mean. When you shoot one-point perspectives, it doesn't give that feeling of water pouring off on the side. It doesn't give that feeling of being lopsided, even though you've straightened everything. So that's one of the reasons I would say that in architecture, really one-point perspectives tend to be favored. You can shoot wider and you can shoot a little bit tighter, and there's that sort of symmetrical feel. And I feel like modern day architecture is a lot of times really based in sort of straight lines and grid-like stuff, and I think the one points really lend themselves better. Now, in terms of this photo right here, one of the biggest I'd say technical problems I see is the fact that the window is just looking, I feel like it's been, you know, this is sort of gives it that artificial look, and you definitely don't want this. And I personally feel one way to take care of this is just with flash. You need flash around the window, and it looks like he's somehow brushed in the window, and it does look like there's a little flash in this area or something, but I'm not crazy about the look of the windows. And I also feel like in general in architecture, I would want to go lighter with this window, and it's stylistic, right? But I just wouldn't be so concerned about showing people that there's a blue sky out there. I might want them to see this stuff out there, maybe, you know, so they can just sort of get a feel. But I would be really happy with going with a brighter window, and then that'll sort of lend itself to making the interior a lot easier to sort of color control, because you're going to be able to go brighter with your interior in that case, because your windows are brighter. It's going to make your natural lighting look more natural. You know, if you use a lot of ambient light, which I probably would in this case, because it's such a, you know, there's so much light streaming in here. So one thing I would probably think about doing in this case is letting the natural light doing a lot of the work, but just getting a few frames, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 frames where I'm getting some light on those windows from a flash, and then I might make that frame a little bit darker so that I could just sort of brush detail into certain areas of the windows. I know it's a little bit hard. Let me go over that one more time. I might just completely use the frame, an ambient frame, to get these images, for example this image right here, and then just shine some light in with my flash on a frame at a little faster shutter speed, maybe 2/3 of a stop, and then brush the windows in a little bit, just a little bit, and just nice and clean, and you'd have a nice, bright, natural looking interior photo. And personally, this stuff up here, I mean, it really tends to muck with a lot of the colors, and we're seeing blues over here, we're seeing yellows, and we're seeing a different colors sort of mixing together, and I don't personally like that. And I do see that there's an ocean out there now, and that could be part of the point here. I just noticed that, you know, and I'm a photographer. I mean, I just barely noticed that there's an ocean out here, or a lake or something. And that's another thing that a tighter angle will get you. So let's say you shot this area over here and you were right behind these chairs, and you had maybe, let's just say on a full frame sensor, you had a 24 millimeter lens. So you could show this whole area, and the view would really be pulled in, and people would really get that sort of dramatic feel that this place is resting on top of an ocean. I don't know where this happens to be, by the way. But yeah, I feel like, so there's color problems, and I feel like we lose a lot of those color problems when we let more natural light in and we let things go brighter, which I think the average architect, they don't tend to mind that. They will like that, actually. And interior designers definitely like that. Okay, that look, that's sort of getting on that overexposed look, but just try and get it to the point where you're keeping your windows well exposed, I would say. All right. So yeah, that same stuff is gonna go for a lot of this. Yeah, in a lot of ways I really like this. I mean, it feels really balanced. It wasn't easy to do that, I'm sure, but then in a lot of ways I'm going back to the same comments I was making about wanting to show things in a grid, like sort of symmetrical one point fashion. I really think an architect will look at that and be more appreciative of images like that in this space. That might be a weird comment, and it's just my point of view, you know, so you can, but I feel like this photo is lit a lot better, and I'm not sure, we would have to get a comment from him in terms of what he did differently, but I just feel like there's a lot of sort of darkish, weird stuff going on through the middle of these walls, and then in this one, it looks nicer. It feels like he got more flash in the walls. I still want to see more sort of brighter windows, and I want to get that feeling that light streaming in from these areas over here, but I just barely want to be able to see that ocean so that people know that this is maybe a little bit too dark for me, okay, on that. And it's just feeling a little bit too much like the light, like we want to feel like the light's coming from over here a little bit more. So yeah, let's move on. Let's keep going. And yeah, a lot of the same comments. The window and is just too dark for me, and the 1 point perspectives. And it might be hard to get that. You might say that it was hard to get a 1 point perspective, and maybe that's true, but that's just the stuff I'm seeing. You want to really go with these photos more, and when I say that, I mean go with the natural light. And whatever, it's hard to, I don't know what I would have seen after I got those natural light frames, but whatever the problems are you're having with those sort of bright natural light frames, then you take care of it, maybe dropping down in your shutter speed a little bit faster, and then you take a couple flash frames and say clean up a little bit of blooming on this window right here, or make sure they can see the ocean out there, but just brushing that in a little bit. Okay, so that's what I see there in terms of making a really nice photo, and doing it very quickly, just using more ambient, because it's your friend in a spot like this. And this one, it's very heavy down here. This is really sort of distractingly heavy, and we're getting that thing I was talking about earlier where we feel like if we poured water right here, it would just sort of slide off. And once again, I want to emphasize this so much because it'll help you so much, believe me. 1 point, if we just move the camera over to the left and did a 1 point and kept the actual focal length here, believe it or not, I know it's hard to believe, but all this would feel like water wouldn't be flowing off the side of the photo. And I know that's amazing, but that's just the way it works somehow. So maybe there's somebody out there with an article somewhere that it can explain that, why 1 points can do that. But yeah, and all kind of all the same points apply. The windows, you want to control your windows, but subtly, I'd say. Maybe that's another way to put it. You want to sort of let them go, I'd say, more. Even though there's stuff out here that you want people to see, I just don't think that's... I think if you want to do that, it's maybe... it's hard to say. It's hard to say anyway. But yeah, this one, I feel like, see, if we open this and then we let the window go, I feel like that would be the way to go there instead of shutting the curtain, because this feels so closed off, isn't that a good way to put that? It just feels like something's wrong to me when I see that. But yeah, there might have been something not so great out here, but like I'm saying, you could even just blow out the window, and I think that would look a lot better. Okay, and then I know this will come up all the time, but you know, this stuff has to be for a nicer higher end photo, that sort of has to be taken care of, all that stuff. But for a real estate photo, I would just shoot it just like what he's done, just what's there. So it depends on what you're doing. And he's trying to get everything in this one frame, and I feel like what I would have done is shot this from over here, and maybe again done a 1 point and tried to get a piece of this mirror in, and we would have seen this. And that's just what I see there, more of a 1 point perspective there. You could have even maybe got a little, like quite a bit tighter, and moved back if you could have, and used say a 24mm lens there. To emphasize some of the points I'm talking about mainly about brighter windows, I'd say, and also maybe clean windows and not having to go after that view, and also 1 point perspectives. Why don't we jump over to a website like Dwell? And I very much recommend doing this from time to time. You get to sort of keep up with trends, and you see, what are we seeing here? And now I didn't plan this out. What do we see? The first 6 photos here, and there's 5 1 point perspectives. Now if we come down to this photo down here, it's interesting. Now he did go ahead and he went pretty dark on the window pull, and I would even say this is dark for me. I would go a little bit lighter than this, but this is just stylistic choices, like I was saying earlier. It depends. Everything depends. One of the things I really like in this photo is this piece of sun coming in over here. That's just a great, and you know, the sun along here, so that's great. But yeah, I like the way that he's doing this a little bit brighter, where we can see stuff, but it's a little bit on that side of being a little bit overexposed, more so than we were seeing in this set of aerials, I feel, where he went a little darker, and that'll tend to sort of make your photos feel a little bit less natural with that lighting. And it's the same, if you look at this room right here, it's pretty much like the same type room, but these are feeling a lot more airy. You get that feeling, and a lot more realistic, I would say, in a space like this, where I feel like he could have went even lighter with the windows, like I was saying. And I just picked this sort of at random. It wasn't like what I think you guys should be going for, but I just hope you're seeing the point. Go ahead and go lighter with your windows, even if there is something very important out there, and that'll make you able to go lighter in your interior, and everything's going to make more sense, and things are going to color correct themselves, because when you let things get lighter on interiors, you cannot see color problems as much. And that's sort of a big concept that it's a weird thing, but our eyes just don't detect color problems and color inconsistencies when things get lighter. And this is even one of the reasons I've theorized that it's a really big trend in a lot of photography, where the interior photos are sort of blown out, and because it's very easy to process once you sort of let everything go like that. Okay, another website you might want to try. I'm really sort of fond of Fantastic Frank, and especially these Swedish one over here, the Swedish branch of their firm. And if you're not familiar with this, these are people who actually, it's a brokerage, and they actually are made up of about 50% photographers, and then they have brokers, and then they also have, you know, they have stylists and stuff like this. So what I would say they do, my little processor is having trouble here for some reason, but what I would say they do is, let's just look at an example here. let's try and get one to the style I'm talking about. Like I would like Arial to go for more. And yeah, you see the windows here where they feel controlled, and yet the colors look nicer and everything's looking, and we get that nice sun stream in. They're going for a little bit more overexposed look, and I really think this is a trend and sort of a sophisticated look where we're not losing the window to the point where it just looks crazy, but at the same time it's controlled. And I would personally do that with a little bit of flash frames. I would get this looking how I wanted it, almost in camera, and then I would get a couple flash frames at a little bit faster. This is what I was saying earlier, a little bit faster shutter speed, and I might brush little areas of the window in. But what that allows you to do is it allows you to get a really bright frame for your interior. And you notice these are really sophisticated photographers, I mean, believe me, and they go ahead and they turn out the lights, all right? And that is a stylistic choice, but I'm just, you know, it's just something to consider, okay? These are really people who make their living on, you know, they're full photographers, okay? And you notice it looks almost like a 1 point, but it's not, and that's really interesting. And I usually try and stay away from doing what he's done here, but I think he's made it work. You see the floor, it's not actually a 1 point, but he's sort of emphasizing the room with these windows over here. And you can see what they've done. They've actually placed things to where the composition sort of balances out, and it's beautiful the way they do that. And I was going to say earlier, I feel like what they do here is they gut these apartments when they get it at their brokerage. And when I say that, I mean they take everything out. This is just a guess, by the way, just, you know, for fun, for discussion's sake. They bring in stuff and that'll make the apartment sell. So they're bringing in these pots, they're bringing in these chairs and tables, and they're sort of color accenting stuff, and it's just beautiful work. So yeah, it's a full, every single photo is like a little art piece, and that they've made every single little choice that they've made with these cables and the stuff hanging on the wall is all a choice. Where they put this bag. So yeah, it's beautiful stuff. I highly encourage you to run over here, and you can see once again, even here, they're letting the windows go, even in a, you might even say in a little bit lack of control here, which is great. I think it looks great, and once again, it sells the lighting throughout the space. It sort of sells that, and it also, the last point, I know I'm reiterating a lot of this stuff, but I want you guys to get it, is it makes your color correction easier. And you know, they went brighter with this photo. They let those windows go, and they went ahead and they made it easy on themselves to correct the colors. Because as you look at this wall over here, as things get white, as things get really bright, it tends to be a lot easier to correct the colors within those areas, all right? And this might even be a these are, well, they tricked me, okay? These look so good that they're what do you call it? They look like renderings, right? So, but anyway, I still think, renderings or not, I still think it was a good thing to look at, okay? So I'm glad they tricked me there. Their photos are, even their renderings are good, but I still think it was almost a great thing to look at these renderings, because what are these really sophisticated people going for in a, what do you call it, in an ideal scenario? And this is something they're coming, sort of blowing out windows, and as you can just look for yourself there, all right? So you got to watch out when they get those renderings. I'm not quite sure, because you're looking at thumbnails here. It's always hard to see, and I'm not quite sure how you could tease out the renderings from the real stuff. But a lot of them are real, I know that. So watch out for that at Fantastic Frank. But I still think the renderings are great for, what do you call it, for inspirational sake, all right? Because their renderings are so good. And they're just, whoever is doing those is really good, okay? So let's jump back over. And I wanted to lastly look at this. Let's just jump in here. And I think lighting this was a really good choice, but I feel like it's too heavy-handed, especially up here. I mean, you can see, I think this back here is sunlight, and that would have been a cool accent to sort of see, and the differentiation between the brickwork up here and this lighting accent coming in through here. And it's getting really bright up here, and we know the sun is up here. You can see how nice the lighting looks on these little plant pots up here. It's really nice because it's coming in at that angle. And so I'd want to sort of play with that natural lighting more, and maybe a little less heavy-handed on the lighting within. But in a lot of ways, I really like how he's done this, where it's a little bit darker over in these areas. It almost looks like he could have lit this, and I think that is lit over there, but that might have been his light somehow spilling out. I'm not sure if this is open over here. I guess it probably is, like an opening over here. But yeah, I'd like to see this a little less heavy-handed and definitely tapering off, maybe a little bit brighter down here, since the sun we know is coming in and we don't want it so bright up here. I'd say you could do a like a mask on your lighting frames and just do a gradient coming down where it's blocked out up here, your lighting, and it just sort of tapers off, something like that. Okay, I also felt like that as I looked at it there, it felt like it was leaning a little bit to the right, so that's another thing. But I like this. I mean, I like the shot. I like the time of day he shot it. I just think he should have lit it a little bit less. It's more subtlety, I think, was what he should be looking at. And this line definitely feels like it's going that way to me, this line over here. Yeah, if he could have got up a little higher here, that would have really helped. But I like this composition, and I like his lighting here was a little bit nicer, where he is doing what I said. It's a little less heavy-handed. All right, so getting up a little bit there might have helped. And I do like the time of day. I like it before a little bit better. Like if he could have shot this earlier, I think that would have been cool. All right. Alright, and it looks nice. It looks nice. He looks like he shot this later, so it's shady out there. And I gotta say, I always tend to feel like it's a little bit dull, but I think it works. But I think he could have went even lighter on this window pull. But yeah, we're sort of getting this. I still feel like, and this is one of the main critiques, he could have shown this space with a 1-point perspective somehow. And yeah, it's a little awkward with this counter coming in over here. So we want to show the features in here that we want to show are the stairwell, of course. I kind of see two shots as I look at this photo, maybe looking straight out toward these windows, and then one pointed toward this wall. Maybe a two photo sort of with two photo set there. And yeah, this looks nice. If it just feels a little, maybe the sun was over there. Yeah. I'm gonna say less about the exteriors. I just feel like, yeah, I'm more gonna talk about the lighting and stuff in this critique. So yeah, it's looking, I feel like this is better. And I would even see this accent right here. I would even play that and accentuate it more. It looks like you try to control it a little bit, and I would even want to. I guess it's natural, and this is great. I mean, I love that. It's my favorite part of the photo. That little accent. If he controlled it, I'd go with it and say even make that brighter. I just feel like right here, I do actually like his composition right here. I just feel like, once again, maybe the 1 point might have been a better choice, but he did something there that I probably wouldn't have done. But looking at 1 point may have been a little bit awkward too, because we wouldn't see this stuff over here. But you got to try and get in this frame of mind where you're not always needing to show everything in these photos. You know, we can just show certain major design elements of the room, but we're a little bit tighter. All right, you can show those stairs and show the wall and show the work in here and the way, the construction and stuff, and not necessarily have to show the whole room. All right, and this just feels like it's too, to me this feels like it's just a little bit too naturally lit for me. I always feel like I want to get more light into photos like this, and so we're getting these blown out stuff over here. And so what I would do is I would tend to get a base frame that's much darker than this, and then go ahead and go around and selectively light little areas. And you might have 15 flash frames, say, where you're selectively lighting, and the photo overall is a lot darker, and you might get a little bit of flash through here on the seats, just so people know what they are, because they're going to be really dark in that frame. And so that's how I would handle something like that. Go darker, control the light to the point where you're controlling the lights, the highlights, and then add your own light. And yeah, these are very different. We jumped from really, these are very difficult. What do you call it? Different spaces, right? So sort of got to think about this a little bit. Yeah, in general, I would feel like I'd want to do the same type thing here, going faster on my shutter speed and sort of controlling where I want to put light. All right. And yeah, the same thing here. I'd want less natural light. This just feels almost like a fully natural photo to me. There's a lot of, if you look up here, there's a lot of color problems and gradation, and you want to kill those lights with your shutter speed and go ahead and add your own light. And you don't have to blanket the entire place with light. You just maybe add it in the areas where you feel it needs. Like maybe you need some over here. Maybe you need some down here on this wall. So that is what I see in these last few photos. Just going, see, and it looks like he did that here. See, these are a little bit more controlled, and to me the photo looks a lot better. And from what I've seen, this is to me the nicest photo that we've seen in the set so far. It's clean, it looks nice, and we have this highlight here that I really think, don't forget this guy, emphasize these highlights because they really sort of they accentuate your photos. It's always a positive almost. These really nice highlights like that. It just adds so much as opposed to a dull sort of photo where there's no highlights like that and it's just evenly lit throughout. That's not a look you're going to want to be going for. So this is very nice. A good job. And I would say, generally speaking, to Ariel, whatever he did here, sort of look into doing that more in all your work, even if it's a larger space. I feel like you killed the shutter speed a little bit, meaning you went a little bit faster and you did more of your own lighting here, which I like. You can do that in a big space too. It just might take you longer, but you can do it. All right, and that was it. All right, so thank you, Ariel, for getting in touch. Good job. I think I would go ahead and move this up to the top. Personally, I would move this up here, and I would think back to what I did here, and sort of when I'm going forward in the future spaces that I happen to get into, I would try and remember back how I lit that and how I went about that, and just sort of refine. And like we said, go ahead and get some inspiration from these places. Don't get faked out like me and find a rendering one, but this one looks like the real thing, so let's check that out. But look at this, they're a little bit they're pushing it here. I love it. The stuff they do is great. I mean, you wouldn't see this in too many other real estate agent listings, would you? I mean, this is a great angle. It totally works, and just the way they've done this, they've sort of forgotten all those rules about vertical lines, and they're just showing you this great angle, and they're even using that as their home run photo, right? The top of their set. All right, so, and once again, we see these bright exteriors, but they're controlled at the same time, and there's not like this blooming and other crazy stuff going on out there. All right, so yeah, this, see, I get just sort of mesmerized by some of these photos. So this is absolutely beautiful photo. So you see how they've done that. They've actually played with the bedspread there in a really I feel like a very sophisticated way. We would never do something like that over here in the States. Does that mean? Yeah. And I love that they do that. They just sort of make this feeling that the person just sort of threw their bedspread on there and went to work, right? And I think that's very, very cool. It's sort of pushing, it's sort of ahead of our time, I feel, in the States. And, what can you say? That's great. And, yeah. All right. So that's where inspiration should come from, in my opinion. And Dwell is maybe more, I'd say, they're a bit more... I'd say safe to look at Dwell, meaning they're I'd say if you're an American, they're a bit safer, and Fantastic Frank maybe a bit more on the cutting edge side. I'd say avant-garde or whatever that word is. But yeah, hopefully that helps. Go ahead and through there do a tally in your head of how many 1 points you see. I think you'll really start to realize how important that is in this higher end photography these days, and other stuff like that. And That's the thing. You want to be inspired by photos, but you don't necessarily want to get in there and say, I'm going to make this look exactly like his, right? But you want to be inspired by photos, right? And just go ahead and you want a look that you're going for, and yet you want to try and duplicate those looks that you're really in appreciation of, and sort of being able to reverse engineer photos like this is probably an important step in something like that. Like this was definitely lit, this photo, you can tell, because the the shadow is coming. I feel like it was natural. The shadow would be way here. Okay, so you can tell the light's coming from just right there, and it's pointed up. So, and that might have been a little bit of a mistake he made here in this photo, because I feel like it would have been more natural. But the point there was reverse engineering. How did these guys do this? And that way, when you find a photo you really like, you can sort of say, oh, I can go ahead and try and add a little bit of that flavor that I saw in those photos I really like today in my photo shoot. Okay, so look into reverse engineering. That's always something that'll propel your photography forward. And thanks for the question, Ariel, and I will see you guys for the next one.